Creating 3D stone art sculptures at home is a rewarding artistic process that combines creativity, craftsmanship, and an understanding of texture, form, and structural design. The first and most important step is selecting the appropriate materials. While traditional sculptors often work directly with natural stones such as marble, limestone, sandstone, granite, or soapstone, beginners creating stone effect sculptures at home can achieve impressive results using lightweight and affordable alternatives. Essential materials include sculpting clay for initial modeling, wire for armatures, aluminum foil for bulk structure, plaster bandages, cement-based sculpting compounds, stone powder, texture paste, carving tools, palette knives, rasps, sandpaper, acrylic paints, mineral pigments, sealers, protective gloves, safety glasses, and a sturdy work surface. Professional artists often begin by developing a concept sketch that defines the sculpture's proportions, silhouette, focal points, and emotional impact. Before touching any material, spend time visualizing the final piece from multiple angles because successful sculpture is fundamentally about understanding three-dimensional space. Once the design is established, create a strong armature that serves as the skeleton of the sculpture. Wire armatures are commonly used because they provide flexibility while maintaining structural strength. Bend the wire according to the planned form and reinforce larger sections with thicker gauge wire where necessary. To reduce weight and save material, wrap aluminum foil around the armature to establish the rough mass of the sculpture. This stage is not about detail, but rather about capturing the overall volume and proportions. Constantly rotate the sculpture and examine it from every direction to ensure balance and symmetry where desired. After constructing the armature, begin applying the primary sculpting medium. Many home artists use air-dry clay, polymer clay, epoxy clay, or cement-based sculpting compounds depending on the intended finish. For a realistic stone appearance, cement-based mixtures combined with stone powder create excellent results because they naturally mimic the density and texture of carved rock. Apply the material gradually in layers rather than attempting to build the entire form at once. Professional sculptors think in terms of large shapes first, medium forms second, and fine details last. Focus initially on establishing the major planes and contours. Avoid becoming distracted by small details too early because proportion errors are much easier to correct during the early stages. Use your hands, wooden modeling tools, metal spatulas, and loop tools to refine the structure. As the form develops, continually compare different sections to maintain visual harmony. The relationship between positive space and negative space is particularly important in sculpture because the empty areas surrounding and penetrating the artwork contribute significantly to its visual impact. During this phase, artists often photograph their work from multiple angles, allowing them to identify proportion issues that may not be immediately visible while working. Once the primary form has been established, attention shifts toward refining anatomy, structure, and surface transitions. Whether creating human figures, animals, abstract designs, or decorative stone ornaments, successful sculptures rely on clear form definition. Begin carving and shaping the surface using loop tools, ribbon tools, rasps, and sculpting knives. Remove excess material carefully and gradually. Professional sculptors understand that sculpture is often an additive and subtractive process simultaneously. Certain areas require building up while others require carving away. Focus on creating smooth transitions between forms while preserving strong silhouettes. In figurative work, pay close attention to anatomical landmarks, muscle flow, and skeletal structure. In abstract sculpture, emphasize rhythm, movement, and visual balance. During refinement, Establish dominant forms before secondary details. Large planes should remain clear and readable because excessive detailing can weaken the overall impact of a sculpture. Many beginners make the mistake of covering every surface with texture, whereas professionals strategically use texture to guide the viewer's eye and create visual contrast. Texture creation is one of the most important techniques in achieving realistic stone effects. Natural stone possesses subtle irregularities, fractures, weathering patterns, and mineral variations that contribute to its character. To replicate these qualities, experiment with a variety of texturing methods. Press rough stones, crumpled aluminum foil, wire brushes, coarse sponges, bark fragments, or textured fabrics into the surface before the material fully cures. Use sculpting tools to carve cracks, fissures, and erosion marks. Layer different textures to avoid repetitive patterns that appear artificial. Observe real stone surfaces carefully and study how weather, water, and time influence their appearance. Professional artists often create texture samples separately before applying techniques to the final sculpture. This allows experimentation without risking damage to the main artwork. Surface variation should feel natural and organic rather than decorative or random. The goal is to create believable geological character while preserving the sculpture's artistic integrity. As the sculpture begins to harden, surface refinement becomes increasingly important. Depending on the material used, sanding may be performed after curing. Begin with coarse sandpaper to remove major imperfections and gradually progress to finer grits for smoother transitions. Some artists intentionally preserve tool marks because they contribute to the handmade aesthetic and reinforce the illusion of carved stone. Evaluate the sculpture under different lighting conditions, because shadows reveal surface inconsistencies more effectively than direct frontal lighting. Professional sculptors frequently use side lighting during refinement because it highlights subtle imperfections and enhances form readability. Continue making adjustments until the sculpture communicates the intended visual message clearly and effectively. Patience during this stage often determines the difference between an amateur and professional result. The coloring process plays a crucial role in transforming a sculpture into a convincing stone artwork. Even when using cement-based materials, strategic coloration enhances realism dramatically. Begin by applying a base coat that matches the desired stone type. Gray tones work well for granite-inspired sculptures. Warm beige tones replicate limestone, while muted earth colors can resemble sandstone. Use acrylic paints diluted with water to create translucent washes rather than opaque coatings. Professional artists build color gradually through multiple transparent layers. This technique creates depth and complexity similar to natural mineral formations. Dry brushing is another valuable method. Load a brush with a small amount of paint, remove most of it on a paper towel, then lightly drag the brush across raised surfaces. This highlights texture and creates the illusion of worn stone edges. Layering darker washes into recesses increases depth and contrast. Introduce subtle variations of browns, greens, blacks, and ochres to simulate mineral deposits, moss staining, oxidation, and environmental aging. Avoid uniform coloration because natural stone exhibits countless variations in tone and pattern. Advanced stone finishing techniques involve creating geological realism through mineral effects and aging treatments. Professional artists often use powdered pigments, stone dust, and tinted sealers to enhance authenticity. Pigments can be brushed into textured surfaces and fixed with sealers to create subtle coloration impossible to achieve through paint alone. For weathered sculptures, apply diluted dark washes and selectively remove them from raised areas, leaving darker tones in crevices. This technique mimics years of natural erosion and environmental exposure. Small speckles created with toothbrush splatter methods can simulate granite crystals and mineral inclusions. Layering multiple effects gradually yields more convincing results than applying a single heavy treatment. Always allow each layer to dry fully before proceeding to the next stage. Patience and observation remain the defining qualities of successful finishing work. Structural durability must also be considered throughout the sculpting process. Larger sculptures require internal reinforcement to prevent cracking or collapse. Fiberglass mesh, embedded wire, and strong armatures provide additional support where necessary. If the sculpture will be displayed outdoors, use weather-resistant materials and exterior-grade sealers. Outdoor sculptures face challenges from moisture, sunlight, temperature fluctuations, and environmental pollutants. Professional artists often apply multiple protective coats to ensure longevity. Sealers not only protect the surface, but also enhance color depth and improve resistance to staining and abrasion. Matte finishes generally provide the most realistic stone appearance because highly glossy surfaces rarely resemble natural rock. Test sealers on sample pieces before applying them to the final sculpture, because different products can alter color and texture significantly. Presentation is the final artistic stage. Even a beautifully crafted sculpture benefits from thoughtful display. Consider how lighting interacts with the piece and reveals its forms. Directional lighting creates dramatic shadows that emphasize texture and dimensionality. Position the sculpture on a suitable base that complements rather than competes with the artwork. Stone effect sculptures often pair well with wood, metal, concrete, or natural stone pedestals. The base should support the visual narrative of the sculpture while providing stability and professionalism. Professional artists understand that presentation influences perception as much as craftsmanship itself. Evaluate the sculpture from the viewer's perspective and consider how it will be experienced within a specific environment. The most important principle throughout the entire process is observation. Study real stone sculptures, geological formations, historical monuments, architectural carvings, and natural rock surfaces whenever possible. Analyze how light interacts with different textures and forms. Observe subtle color shifts, weathering patterns, fractures, and erosion effects. Every successful sculpture emerges from a combination of technical skill and careful observation. Rather than rushing toward completion, focus on understanding the relationship between form, texture, structure, and surface treatment. Each stage builds upon the previous one, and every decision influences the final result. Through consistent practice, experimentation, and attention to detail, home artists can create stunning 3D stone art sculptures that possess the visual richness, authenticity, and professional quality associated with traditional stone carving, while utilizing accessible materials and techniques suitable for a home studio environment.